Hello, I'm Mark Red Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'm welcome back my guest, Dan Quinlan. He's my favorite European that lives in Indiana now. So how are you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing good, thanks. I like the introduction as well. Thank you.
Oh, you were very welcome. Thank you. So, yeah, I'm just glad we're doing this podcast because we're in two different time zones and did not get that. I didn't get that message until about an hour ago. So, not even, maybe not
Oh,
much.
no.
So, it makes it interesting. It's the way life is. Just roll with it. And that's kind of the way this podcast is too. So, Dan, how is everything in Indiana right now?
Yeah, it's going good. It's I can tell it's the summer's coming. It's really warm outside. I still do Celsius, not Fahrenheit. So I think it was around 25 today, which I think is in the 70s Fahrenheit.
That's nice.
And I'm currently in my basement with the heater on because my basement is freezing cold. So that's how I know
I,
that summer's coming.
yeah, I know we have that too. So did you have much of a winter this year? Did you get a lot of snow?
We did get some snow. I was expecting a really bad winter, and a few people I'd spoken to from history said that, hey, it was probably going to be a really bad winter, but I
Uh-huh.
really didn't think it was. So I think we had a
That's
week or so of snow, which was fun. It didn't hit that point where it was really annoying and you just want it to go. So kids enjoyed it too, to a degree.
oh yeah,
And so, yeah,
that's
not too bad.
definitely. That's good. So, for guests that are just joining us for the first time, because this is your second time on the Dreamcatcher podcast, what's your background? Where did you come from before being in Indiana?
Sure. So I'm originally from southeast of England, so Kent. So just on the coast. So I kind of lived about a 5 minute walk from the beach, which was always super nice.
Nice,
And then
yes.
we moved to Indiana October 2017. So coming up 7 years this year, which just
Yeah,
feels
time flies.
insane. It really does.
No, I mean, so that traveling was Indiana like you thought it would be, or the United States living there for that many years now? Has it been kind of what you expected?
It's got better. I mean, the first 3 months or so were fantastic because it's so
Good.
exciting. You're somewhere new, you've
Right.
got a house, everything's a milestone, and it's always really exciting. And then when we moved here in October, the weather was cold but not too bad. And then I think it hit January, February. We'd never seen cold or felt cold like it. We'd
Oh,
been here
yeah, it's
three or
cold.
so months. January is not a great month anyway, is it? I mean, you've got the Christmas
It is
blues and the
not.
weather, everything. So at that point, we kind of hit a bit of a lull of okay, don't know when we're next seeing family, trying to make friends, and things are a little bit more real
True.
now, that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
that took a bit of
Yeah, the new
time, and
worked off.
yeah, exactly. And I'd probably say it's been the last year, maybe two, coming up 2 years, where we felt really settled now, and you kind of
That's
enjoy
awesome.
living here.
That's
We've
really
got good
awesome.
friends here, all that stuff. So
No,
yeah,
no,
it took a bit of time,
that's
longer than I would have expected.
and I can see that. I've never done that. So I mean, you talk about it. I mean, it'd be similar, but it would be different. I mean, I've never been to
Mhm.
England yet. So, but I just kind of like Italy when Cheryl and I went there last summer. It was very similar. There's a lot of similarities, more than I thought, to the United States, but there was definitely some differences,
Uh-huh.
and but had you, I mean, United States before you'd come to live here in Indiana?
So I did a week home finding trip, just the wife and I. Daughter was 3, so she
Okay.
stayed with my parents, and just the two of us for a week, which I mean that was harder than I expected it to be. And I was actually recovering from surgery at the time as well. I'd had surgery like a week
Oh,
before
okay. we
we flew out, and stitches removed a day before we flew, and things like that. So I
Oh,
I
wow.
wasn't feeling great at that
No,
point.
I bet.
So we came here. It was July. It was incredibly hot. We'd never been away from our daughter. Certainly, my wife hadn't for that long. So the trip itself
Oh, wow.
was that was a hard trip. And then it was
It'd
like,
be
well,
tough.
are we doing the right thing? It was like it's kind of too late now. We have to go ahead with it anyway. I've
Mhm,
accepted the job,
mhm.
so let's go with it. And if it really doesn't work out, we'll find a way to get back. But at least we've tried, and I'm really glad we did. Really glad.
No, that is so. I think, are you still working for the same company, or is that what brought you over here to? I mean, I know you said
Yep. Yeah.
you still working for that just slipped my mind. What's the company you're working for? Cummins.
It's Cummins.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So been there 9 years now, 9 and a bit years, which is a long time. But a weird thing, only two and a bit of that was back in England. So yep, still with the same company, still doing the
Okay.
same role I was 7 months or so ago when you and I last spoke.
Okay. Very good.
And yeah,
Good.
enjoyed it. Great company to work for, and yeah,
I would
enjoying it.
believe that. they seem like a very good company. So it seemed quality products and stuff like that. So,
Mm,
um, so have you started your
absolutely.
podcast yet?
I knew that question was coming. Uh, Not yet, but it's
Not
one of
yet?
these that you know what? Beginning of the year, I think when you and I last spoke, I was doing a newsletter and I was trying to figure out
Yes,
how
yes,
to what sort of coaching I was going to do,
right.
that sort of thing. And I sat down in January and was like, okay, how do I get really intentional about what I'm going to do here?
Okay.
And I wrote down a list of like 3 or 4 of my goals for the year
Right.
and realized that the newsletter didn't actually
That wasn't
reach
the
into any of those goals.
okay.
And so I was like, okay, that's actually really good insight to have.
True.
So
Yeah.
that point came to me. It was like, okay, well, if you're spending 3 or 4 hours a week researching, writing, publishing, advertising, whatever, with the newsletter, and it's not going to work into one of your goals, that's not the best use of 3 or 4 hours of your
True.
time.
True. No, that's
So
worth
I
it.
decided to pivot into a
Okay.
slightly different direction, which
Okay.
I'm thoroughly enjoying now and just feels more kind of aligned to where I want to go. It meets those
Okay.
goals. And a podcast is on the list, but it's not in the
Okay.
top three. So it'll get
Okay.
there one day, but not right now.
Okay. So what did you pivot to?
Sure. So I pivoted into a different direction of I still want to do emails and help people,
Sure.
but long form newsletters probably isn't the direction I wanted to go in. So I started off with, how do I help people find, what their purpose is, what their values are. And the more I was working through that and thinking through it, I was like, I'm really struggling to explain what it is and how to do that.
Okay.
And then the more I thought about that, the more I worked on that, I was like, man, if I'm struggling to explain what it is, how on earth can I expect anyone else to understand what it is
True.
I'm trying to do?
True.
So I went through quite a lot of work and talking to people and thinking, how do I really resonate and click with me and other people of what I'm doing? So I started that process of, okay, well, working parents still want to help those.
Right.
What is it that stops parents from feeling good about themselves? And started going
Mhm.
through that process, kind of, market research, working through it.
Right.
And then as I was looking around, I saw loads of coaches and others who, I empower women, I help female CEOs, I help mums.
Right.
And I was like, it's amazing. I love that there's so much support out there for women. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
see anything on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that for
Okay.
me was okay, that's telling me something here.
That's uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is.
And there's two things it's telling me. One is there's no market there and no one's interested. I didn't believe that.
No, I
And the
wouldn't either.
second one was there's a gap there. So that's
Mhm.
when I started to be a bit more intentional of, okay, well, what I do can work for anyone, but I really want to target dads. How can I help
Okay.
dads?
Okay.
What's one thing in particular that stops dads, myself included, I've got 2 young
Right.
kids,
Right. Right.
from being there and present and successful, if you will, with their kids, whatever that term success means.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't be there, present, happy, all of that with your kids if you're not enjoying what you're doing for work.
Amen.
You, you,
Yeah.
you can't spend 40, 50, 60, whatever hours a week in a job you don't like and then
Mm-hmm.
come home and everything's great. You maybe
Yep.
can do that for a little bit of time, but it's not sustainable.
No, it isn't.
So that's where I started to pivot more towards, okay, I've been through that process. I really
Mm-hmm.
struggled for a couple of years, and, and you and I
Yeah.
talked about it in the first podcast we did
Right.
of
Right.
some of the struggles I went through. I'm a dad, working dad. I've had times in my career where I haven't enjoyed what I did and needed to figure out why that was.
Sure.
So how can I help with that? So that's when I started moving more towards I've got some resources that I've been working on that I've released recently, set up my website. I have emails that I go out once or twice a week with different either stories of things that have happened or tips, tools, all of that sort of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving it. It feels much more me and much
You
more
know,
what I'm
yeah.
wanting to do.
Found you're in flow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So that's been a great journey of figuring that out and
And
then
that's worth
working
so
through
much.
it. And yeah, absolutely. And even just working on the wording of things has been, I've reiterated so many times of what do I do? How do I do it? All of that sort of stuff. And do I use this word? I don't like that word. Let's substitute it with another word. All of those
Yeah, I know
really
what you mean.
cool things.
Yeah, it's just not quite right. Yeah. So, yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, Oh, that's awesome. So, because that'll shorten the learning curve for, like you say, dads. That is because I think
Mhm.
dads are very much overlooked. And so what is the goal, the dream of getting that to where you really think that this is what I'm wanting to create?
Sure. So the goal for me is to help people ultimately.
Okay.
I look through my time and my background's HR for I think it's 14 years now, 13, 14 years, qualified coach. I've spent thousands of dollars, hours of time, training on this, researching that sort of thing. And for me also, when I look back through my story, which is probably the more poignant part of it, it took me 2.5, 3 years to
So
figure
I
what my issues were out and how to work
can believe
through
that.
them. And my son's going to be 5 this year. And if you put that into context, that's more than half of his life where I didn't feel that
Right.
I was as good as I could have been
You
or should have been for
right.
him. So if it took me 2.5, 3 years, I want to make sure if other people are going through it, it does not take them anywhere near that amount of time.
That's so
So
awesome.
when I was working through how do I do that, that's where I started working through. Okay, well, there's some frameworks that worked for me or didn't work for me, or I've learned from other people, and combining it all together of this gets people through where they are now to
Hmm.
where they want to be. And I use those terms loosely because I'm not going to say you're here and you want to get here because that's for the person to decide. They ultimately need to know, are they happy where they are right now? And if the
Exactly.
answer is yes, fantastic, awesome.
Yep.
If the
Yep.
answer is no, okay, where do you want to be and how do we work to get
Right.
there? And the
Right.
framework I've built, I feel, and the feedback is does that, but I also create a lot of individualism in there of, hey, the framework is to help you, but now you and I together, let's work through you. You've got
Yeah.
the frameworks, you've got those bits. Let's talk about what you're going through and feeling and
And
go
I
through
think
that
that's so
process.
great because I think most people don't know. I think, most people exist. I think they don't really, they just, they don't know, they don't know those answers, and
Yeah.
until you have somebody come along that's like you, that's willing to do the helping and the, moving them along. I think
Mhm.
they don't, like a lot of things in life, until you have to maybe
Yeah.
face it, you don't face it. I mean, some people
Hmm.
do, but I guess the majority don't. So,
Absolutely.
this is so awesome. I mean, so what does I mean you starting on this with dads. So what does this all going to contain to support dads?
Sure, no problem. So at the moment, I've got kind of three avenues, if you will, and I'm working on fourth, but that's going to take me a bit of time to
Okay.
get done. So everyone's in a different stage of their journey, and what I've been trying to do is how do I reach people in different stages? Some might
Right.
be, hey, I really need this, but I don't need that. But, okay, that's cool.
Right.
I've got this for you. So for me, the kind of stages I've got is I've got a free resource that I put on my website, which is to, strengths in action is what I call it. It's
Okay.
what are your strengths? What are your top 7 strengths out of those?
Cool.
And let's come up with a 28-day plan of how you leverage them more. Because when I
Nice.
went through my issues, one thing I learned over time was when things weren't going well, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to fix it. Things are going to go better. And then 3 weeks later, something would happen and I'd revert straight back to lack of confidence.
I
And
can hear
I
it.
realized after about 2 years, which is crazy in hindsight, my issue wasn't the motivation. My issue was my foundations weren't good. And every time I was building, it was
Interesting.
crumbling because I wasn't building on a solid and strong
Okay.
foundation.
And that makes
So
sense.
the strengths
Okay.
piece is to help you figure out if you're lacking confidence, struggling. The first step is to try and get some confidence back. Well, how do you do that? You do that by leveraging your strengths better and working out what you are
True.
good at and not focusing so much on what you're not so good at.
True. True.
So, which was really cool. So that was one piece, and another one I've just recently released, which I really like as well, is I call it the career wheel of success. So, if you're
Okay.
feeling unhappy with your work, there's 8 categories in this wheel. Like career development, work-life balance, salary, those sort of things,
Right.
and you score yourself out of 10 on those,
Okay. Okay.
and you then write down, how are you feeling with those scores? Because there's no right or wrong scores. There
Yeah.
really isn't. If you
Where you're
score a
at.
7 in something, that you
Yeah.
could be a problem that you want it to be an 8 or 9. You could score a
Okay.
5 and you wanted a 7. You could score a 5 and not care that it's a 5. So wanted to keep it really flexible. So you go through that tool and it helps you really figure out what is it that I'm not happy with in my career or my job.
Okay.
And then as
Very good.
part of that plan, you then get a session with me to talk through
Okay.
that and try and come up with an action plan. So that's kind of like an
Very cool.
introductory
Okay.
session as well. And that's actually, if I can throw this in here, Mark,
Sure.
I've actually done a special on that just for this podcast where
Oh, thank you.
if someone's interested in that, go to my website, which is www.danquinlan.com/wheel of success. And if you put Dreamcatcher in the coupon bit, there's a
Oh,
50% discount for
oh,
people.
wow.
So
Thank you.
yeah, I wanted to try and do something to, help people that are listening. So
Thank you. I love your. It just shows who you are. That's awesome. Your soul, your vibe,
thank you.
everything. I think that's why we resonate so well. So you're that's
Definitely, yeah, and
who's going to help. So no, I
thank
will
you.
make sure that they all see that offer there. So so okay, so coaching. I mean, or working with them. How is that? Like so many months, or it just depends on the individual?
Sure. So the one I just mentioned, that the Wheel of Success, is a one-off session. So that's
Okay.
where it's kind of the lower end support, if you will.
Okay.
I've also built a program which is kind of the signature program, if you will,
Yeah.
where you get 10 sessions with me and we go through 4 phases ultimately, with the idea being of, we need to build your foundations and then start working
Right.
through
Right.
that. So that's my kind of signature program. It's 10 sessions, should take generally between 6 to 10 months, and I leave that fairly loosely because I'm a dad. I know what it's
Yeah. Oh,
like.
yeah.
You can have something in
I've
your
had
calendar and
yes.
your
Yes.
kid's sick or your work's
Yep.
crazy that week and you can't quite do it. And the last thing I'd want to do is say to someone, hey, no, 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 I said 6 months and you haven't
Yeah.
quite done it yet. And that's not the point. So
No,
looking at
exactly.
6 to 10, but fairly flexible, but it's also
Make
getting
that,
that balance of, hey, if I give you 3 years to do this, there's always going to be, I'll do it tomorrow.
yeah,
So how do
they'll keep
we
full three
do that?
years. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the time you
exactly. So that's the signature program, which goes really in depth with how do we build your confidence and go from there.
that's amazing. And I mean, you've come so far from when we talked, not pretty recently. You must be working
Mhm.
around. I mean, you must really be doing a lot of time working on this. I mean, this is. I know this doesn't come around. Takes time. To
Yeah,
put all this together. So I
it
mean,
really does. But honestly, it's one of these. I love doing it. There's obviously been certain bits, like some of the website setup was a headache, but other than that, it's
I can really I know that one.
yeah. I wouldn't say I necessarily loved doing all of that, but for me, I enjoy it so much that of an evening when the kids go to bed, I
Yep.
don't want to watch something on TV or something. I want to work on this.
Yes.
So for
Action. Yes.
me, and that's not every day, but more often than not, there are times where I just want to keep going on this
Yep.
because I really enjoy doing it. So that
Yeah.
helps
It
hugely
does.
with,
Yeah. It really does. I mean, it doesn't seem like work because some people, it's like,
yeah.
how much do you work per week? And it's like, I don't feel like I'm working ever. I don't feel like I'm working now. I'm just having a great conversation with an awesome dude.
Yeah.
It's not work, and I know what you mean there because it isn't. You just you seek it out. You do. It's just like I gotta get back to that because I love doing that. So
Yeah,
and that's just
absolutely. And
I guess if you've never been in that state, people that haven't caught their dream or are working catching their dream don't know that it's one of the best places to be in your life. You get to do
yeah.
things you love to do, and you get to help people. Talk
Mhm.
about a win-win. So I can't wait to see what's
Absolutely.
next with you, Dan. So
Yeah, thank you.
if there's things coming up that you still down the road that you want to still do.
Sure. So yeah, several for me is I keep working on my writing. I'm really enjoying the emails that I
Okay.
send out and getting really good feedback on how helpful they are. Well, I do want to get on podcasts as well. And
Okay.
the first time you and I did the podcast, I remember that was the first time I'd ever done one, and I remember being
Oh, well, I
so
didn't realize
nervous
that. Okay.
beforehand. Yeah, I was so nervous before that podcast. This one, I was a little bit nervous, but it was a little bit better.
I,
So I know that'll improve.
Yeah, I would have never guessed you were nervous either. I mean, the first one especially. I mean, it's just this one either. But you were nervous. Okay, well, like anything new. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there's that. And for me, I'm working on a course as well. And that's a little bit down the line as well. If, I mentioned I want to touch every area of someone's journey. And some of that's going to be free
awesome.
resources. Some will be the one-on-one. Some will be the big package. But how do I also do another one where people can do it in their own time? So
Yeah,
that's something else I'm working on as well. But that takes time. And I've got to get
Yes.
over my thing of I'll have to record myself on video with these courses. And
Just,
that's something that I'm not loving that idea, but I know it's going to get there.
I can relate with that. There is something about that.
Mhm.
It's kind of like when I do these back and I hear my voice, and it's just like there's still something after all of these. It's like I'm getting there, but I still don't like to hear my voice. And
Yeah,
my wife just can't figure that out. It's like it's you, and it's like it is me, but there's something there. I don't know, but
I get that completely. And the one you and I did 7 months or so ago actually took me about 2 months to listen to because I didn't want to hear my own voice
wow,
and stuff.
isn't
And then I was like, you really need to listen to it, Dan, and see what you liked, what you didn't like, and all of those
true?
things. You
How
have
you
to
learn?
do
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
it took me a bit of time to. As soon as I heard my voice, I was like, I sound like that. Oh man, but you get better with that.
Yeah, because you don't think that's. It's like I don't think I
Mhm.
sound like that either. I don't know what.
Yeah.
It's odd, but you get used to it. It's like, yep, that's the way I sound. And I've been doing enough podcasts. And thank you for
Oh,
sending
sure.
me some people too.
No, no,
I'm
you're
gonna talk
welcome.
about on Monday. So, no, it's just it's a process. It's anything is a journey, and I think that's because on this podcast, everybody's like, because I'm in my third year, it's like, so how much money are you making? How much all this? And it's like, it's getting there. What was it? Two
Mhm.
weeks ago, I got on my YouTube channel, I got 9,000 views
Nice.
and it was just like,
Mhm.
you sure you got the right podcast here? I mean, they send out, like YouTube does with those little awards, and it's like,
Mhm. Yep.
and I still have to get over that I am capable of doing a podcast. And
Hmm.
in fact, I did have a guy 2 days ago. It's like I never thought you had the talent to do a podcast. I think it was actually a compliment, but it came
Okay,
across.
yep.
I think one of those things, but it is what it is. So I
I
mean,
love that. Man. I mean,
it's,
you look at one thing I really admire about you as well is your consistency.
well, thank you.
It's the prolific, how prolific you are, the consistency, the openness, the keeping going as well. And that's something that I've tried to put into what I'm doing too. If I look at my website,
Hmm.
I wouldn't say I absolutely love it, but it
Okay.
does what it needs to do and it looks good.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it will get better.
Oh
But if I
yes.
waited until I got it to a point of I love it, when am
Yeah.
I going to do that? And
You
that's been
won't.
something that I've been really pushing
Yeah.
on of I don't love that, but it's good. I'll
Yeah.
make it really good. But at the moment, good is still good enough.
It is, yeah, because you do. You
Hmm.
evolve, and it's like people come into your life, or you see other things. It's like I kind of like that. It's just like with this podcast. Somebody said, "Well, maybe you should share the podcast on YouTube first, and then Spotify." Which right now I'm dropping them both at the same time. But it was like, okay, YouTube people are resonating more. They're commenting more, and it's like, okay, that was a good suggestion. So, and I look back to the very first ones I did for podcasts. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to look back at those. So I cringe. But and I think that's what stops a lot of people because they want to have it good right off the bat, and it usually isn't that way. So
No,
for
absolutely, and I think it's about embracing that, and that's something I've learned a lot
yes,
over time as well. Of I look at my wife really pushed me about 6 months ago, I think, and I think it was just for you and I talked to go on Instagram and use Instagram.
oh
I had never been on Instagram before, never used it,
right,
went on it and was like terrified of these videos are amazing that people are putting out. I don't know how
yeah,
to do that. I
I know what you mean.
I don't have a
Yeah,
clue how to do that. I don't know how to do the visuals. I don't like it. I'm not doing it. I'm just
I
flat
know.
out can't do it.
I agree with you. Yes.
And that 2 months after that, I started using it a bit more and started doing some bits on it and dabbling a little bit. And then I think it was January this year, I was like, I'm gonna every
Yeah.
day, 5 days a week, I'm gonna
Decision. Yeah.
use this. And I look back on 6 months ago and my content's crap, to be completely honest. It's not great.
I, I
But
definitely can
now
agree with that.
it's a lot better.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll have that feeling again in 6 months' time.
Yeah, it's the only way. It's the only way
Hmm.
to really get from good to better to I don't know if there's the best, but getting better
Yeah.
continually. And it's just like my goal right now is to learn how to do Clubhouse. Have you ever used Clubhouse? That app?
No, I've not heard of that.
I had it suggested to me, and I'm looking into it. I did a YouTube thing yesterday on it, and where we can talk discussion, talk like dream catcher discussions about what people are struggling with. It's like kind of on a stage, and I don't know. That's about as much as I know yet, and how to bring people up and then bring in discussion. But yeah, I'm at the point where you were with Instagram. I mean, it's just like, oh, this is going to be very interesting. But yeah, and then somebody suggested I should write a book. And I never thought I'd ever even consider writing a book about the process, where I started and where I am today, to maybe inspire people. And it's like, yeah, that was never on my to-do list ever. But and you like writing, so
Yep.
so did you always like writing?
I I'm going to say I think so, which is a bit of a rubbish answer, but from what I can remember, there have been times where if I have to be really interested and passionate about something to
Makes
want to
sense.
write about it. And I remember that with the newsletter when I started it, I had this fear of what am I going to talk about next week? What am I going to talk about?
Oh yeah.
Why would I start this and 4 weeks later? I don't know what to talk about. But if you
Mhm.
find something you're really passionate about, the actual
Yeah.
challenge becomes how am I going to filter all my ideas into what I'm going to talk about
True.
this
True.
week
Yeah.
or
Okay.
whatever the case may be. And I look now and I started keeping every time something comes in my head, a story, an experience, a
Right.
tool I find, I write it down on my phone as a topic that I can
Very
talk
good.
about.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
look at my list now and I have about 20, 30 different ideas on there that I can
Wow.
talk about.
Very
That
good.
takes the stress away from me then of I don't know what I'm going to talk about. It then
True.
becomes what is most relevant to talk about this week, which
Yeah, I
is a
like
different thing and
it
isn't
is.
really stressful. It's just figuring it out.
Yeah, because it
So
is.
that's a good one.
Yeah,
But
I
so that
heard.
with that, I really enjoy the writing piece of it now
Okay.
because I don't have to stress about what am I going to talk about. It becomes flowing and talking and practicing and how to resonate with people and how to tell a story but not waffle on so no one people are like, oh, this is too much, that sort of
And,
thing. And I'm conscious that dads aren't going to have 25 minutes to read an email from me. They are
true.
going to have 3 to 5 minutes, so I try to
Yeah,
keep everything
keep it in
in
the.
that piece
Yeah.
too. So that it's been good fun, and I can see me writing a book. It's on my
Good.
idea list, not top
Good.
three, so again, not happening this year. But
Okay.
in time, I could definitely see that because
I
I
could
didn't
too.
realize until about a year ago and until you and I spoke, I've got a pretty interesting story with moving
Mm.
countries and the
You do?
struggles and what I'm doing now. And everyone's got their own story.
Yep. Yep.
It's just having the confidence and the ability to see that actually, yeah, I am interesting. You know what I mean? When you don't
I
necessarily
do.
always think,
Yeah, and that I with mine is like, and somebody would be interested in hearing my story, which
hmm
people are. They're the
yeah,
people that's waiting for it. And so, do you journal in the morning?
I'm not prolific on that. That's something that I've been
Okay.
kind of thinking about. And when I have something on my mind, I try and do deeper dives kind of once a week, once every 2 weeks on
Okay.
what I'm thinking. It depends what's going on for me that week. I mean, I've had times during
Yeah.
this whole process of overwhelm of I'm working, kids, I'm trying to
Yeah, I
build
can
this
see
and
that. Yeah.
setting it all up, and it's stressful. And I know when I'm at a stress point because I'm obsessed or fixating over two different words and I cannot make a decision on which word.
I
And
can
that for me is a
understand that.
sign of, okay, you're too in your
Yeah.
head. You need to get out
Yeah.
of it
And
type
yeah,
thing.
and it is easy. And once you get into your head, you might as well just, yeah, I hear you.
No,
It can definitely so.
definitely. And
So I got to go back. You said you had your top three. What are your top three, if I may ask?
sure. So my top three was how do I engage with people? How do
Okay.
I help
Okay.
people? I,
Okay.
I want
Cool.
to build a coaching business practice to help
Okay.
people.
Okay.
And then it became also of I want to I want to build something. And by something was a website, a platform, a way to connect with people. That's a bit more genuine. I don't know if that's necessarily the word I want, but it's
I kind
I
of
guess
yeah.
genuine than social media type
Yeah.
thing because social media is important and I do use it. But if I build up a following on social media and I say something wrong or my account gets blocked, I've
Yeah.
I've lost everyone and I
You
can't
have.
necessarily go
Yeah.
into detail
Exactly.
with stuff. So for me, it was how do I build a community that I can reach out to, and that was when I was thinking about it a bit more, and I was like, the newsletter kind of does that, but not the way I want it to, and I don't want to focus. I want to focus my time more on the short form
I
side
can
of things,
understand
which
that.
was the weekly email. So that's
Okay.
kind of where I kind of pushed everything. into
Okay.
that. And then later on was things like the podcast. The course was on there, but not quite yet. It was
Okay.
the podcast, the book, but they're probably more along the lines of, hey, let's build, get people knowing who you are and start helping people and then branch into other
Right.
areas
Right.
because you don't want to try and do everything and do half
Yeah.
jobs on everything. That was
Yeah.
something I was
You got to
struggling
have
with
a
a little bit.
focus. Yeah. Or you, well, yeah, I hear you on that. So do you speak in public? I mean, do you public speaking or do you speak in front of people, like at work or just otherwise?
Yeah, so I do a lot of presentations and talking to people at work, whether it's
Okay.
either public or on Zoom calls, as the case may be,
Right.
that sort
Right.
of thing. And I don't know if I say I'll enjoy doing it. I don't mind doing it, but again, if it's something you're passionate about, you just enjoy it so much
You
more.
do. Oh, yes.
So I've looked at, how am I going to reach people? And what I've tried to be more recently is more conscious of. I don't want to work on Twitter,
Yeah.
Instagram, all of
Yeah.
those. I need to be more focused. So for me, it was Instagram is my main one. Podcasts
Okay.
are going to be another one, and more general speaking, and the writing's incorporated within that as well. So
Okay.
at this moment in time, they're my kind of two or three. That's where I'm going down, and that's where my focus is
And that's
at
very
the moment.
important. And I could see you in the future having, I don't know how big your city is, but I could see you having meetups in your city to
Yeah,
help people too. So I could definitely see
that's
that.
definitely on the agenda.
So
Definitely
how
on the agenda.
community, how big is your community or your where you live? Are there a lot of people there or a pretty good sized city?
Yeah, it's a decent sized city. I can't remember I say decent size, that's obviously relative to other cities, but there's a
True.
good population of people here and that's something I've been working out as well. How can I get more involved in the community to
That's
help
always good too.
and things
Yes.
like because
That's really
I can
help.
work with someone in I think Nebraska, for example. I could talk with someone in England doing this. That's
Good. Yeah.
absolutely fine. But the community piece is important too. So how
Yeah.
can I help
Yes.
locally with the face-to-face stuff and things like that? And I'm still working through how to do that, but that excites me a lot because
Me
yeah, I
too.
can I can really see that. I can visualize that happening.
That's one with Dreamcatcher. And we don't have really in central Nebraska a lot of homeless, but I go to so many places that have
Hmm.
homeless that we seem to just dismiss those people. And those people all
Hmm.
had dreams too. And I
Yep.
would love as don't know where it's going yet, but something to help get those people off the street rather than just giving them a food meal. Because yeah,
Hmm.
that keeps them from being hungry for a little bit, but how in the long term does that help them? You know, um,
That's
Especially, I mean,
hugely.
New Orleans, and I talked to a lady the other day in Barcelona, and she said there was a lot of homeless in Barcelona, Spain, and it's like, so were you in England? Were there a lot of homeless that you know of, or is it?
There is, without a doubt.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think back of, it's amazing. It's only been 6.5 years, but there's certain things that I don't fully
well, I can
remember
understand
back.
that.
But yeah, I mean, definitely homelessness is an issue. Don't think it was so much where I was from, but definitely in England it is. And I do see some in Columbus as well when you're
Do
driving
you really?
around and things people
Yeah,
needing needing help.
it's just amazing. And then the people just walk around them, and just they don't even. It's just like and it's like those poor people. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, how do you ever get off of that? I mean, you don't have a place to live. You don't have, you're being
Mhm.
there's got to be a solution there, and that's one thing I'm really working on. It's just like get those people a hand up, rather than a hand out, and get them so they get the ball rolling. That maybe they can, well, the way I don't know how rents are and stuff like that, get a place of their own, or something
Yeah,
to start living their dreams. So
absolutely.
yeah,
I love that you use the word sustainable as well, and that's been a huge thing for me too. Of how do I do this so it's not just a hey, you work with me for 6 months and then
right,
you need me forever because I don't want you to need me forever.
right. I
That's
hear
not
you.
the point. I want to be
Yep,
able to, of course, I'll help, of course, but I
sure.
want
I
to be
know.
able to get you to a point where you only need sporadic help, not
Yes,
constant help with
yes,
it. So that sustainability is hugely important. And I think that underpins so much, doesn't it? To your point of there's so
yeah.
much great stuff that helps homeless people, for example, but how do we really help fix the problem as
Exactly.
well
Yes.
with that?
Yeah. And we don't seem to address that. I mean, these
Mm.
people, and I admire them for giving food to the homeless because it makes
Yeah,
them
absolutely.
at least that meal, but it doesn't, not long term. It's just, and I mean, in a cold climate, I can't imagine being homeless. I mean, I think it's bad
Yeah.
enough when I'm in my house with the heat on. I can't imagine being on the street. And then, yeah, there's churches and stuff, which is good. But I don't know. After being in New
And
Orleans
that's
last summer, It was just unbelievable how many homeless people down there. I mean,
Oh
you could only
wow.
walk on the sidewalks because there were so many. And the police were
Wow.
there, and the police weren't doing anything. And I really, it definitely touched my heart a lot. So that's
And
kind of
that's where I think, the team, a community and a team becomes so
yes,
powerful, doesn't it? Because you've got people who can help feed. You've then got people who can help with inspiration. You've got people who can help
yeah,
with housing. You've got people who can help with
yes,
jobs. That sort
yes.
of thing. If you all team up together, that's where it becomes so powerful.
It does. Really powerful. Yeah, with the collaborations of all coming together
Hmm.
and I'm so there's so many people I not so much on the podcast with the competition. It's like, what are you doing? How
Hmm.
many you got on the and it's just like, yeah, that's not me. So that is
Yeah,
definitely not. Yeah, I want to work together. So that's when it becomes win-win. So very much. So Dan,
definitely is.
anything else you would like to share on the podcast before we tie it up?
Sure. So I think a couple of things. One, I want to quickly go back to something you said actually about you writing a book.
Okay.
You had 9,000 views you mentioned the other day on
Yeah,
YouTube.
that's what they told me on
I
YouTube.
would I would confidently say that at least a good portion of those 9,000 people want to hear what you have to say in a book and want to learn from that. And
Okay.
that's just now. If you think even
Okay.
further forward of how many more views you'll get with people or how many more people you'll touch, that sort of thing, that
Right.
number will increase. So obviously do what you want to do, but I think you'd be in with a great position of a book there. I really do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I had never thought of it that way either. It just is like I told Cheryl, it's like my wife. It's just like 9,000 people. Like, it's just that I haven't got my mind around that yet. That is one of those things, kind of like when I hear my voice. It's just like it's just like it intrigues me, but it's like wow. And I just want to get more of that. I want to affect the whole world positively.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
uh,
definitely, definitely. So I think,
so
yeah, do it. Obviously, you've got to want to do it and be comfortable. You can push
yeah.
yourself doing it, but I think you'd have a real impact on that one. I
And
really do.
you
And
know
I'd
what?
read it too. So you're one
Well, thank
person
you,
there.
Dan. I appreciate that very, very much. But and once I start, I journal, but it takes me. I really don't want to journal, but once I really get into it, it's
Mhm.
like, wow, I've been journaling pages here, and it's like I think
Yeah.
that's the way. I know if I put it out there, that's the way it will be. I put it out to the world, and maybe it's one of the most favorite things, and I've just never done it, and thought I wouldn't like it. So I don't know. It
It's
very
about
much.
habit building
Yes, it
as well,
is.
isn't it? That's what I've
It,
learned. It can
yep,
feel awkward to start with, but if you think it's worthwhile, do it for at least a month and then see where the habit takes you. And if
yeah,
you don't like it, okay, that's fine. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that. But if
yeah.
you do, awesome. You've
Yeah.
got a bit more used to it.
And you never know
So
until you do it. Yeah, and do
mm,
it like that. You're non-negotiable that I'm going to take whatever this amount of time. Do it every day, and it's just like brushing your teeth. Just make it that way. It's just like I'm going to
yeah,
write so many. I don't know so many words, so many chapters. Don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but until you
definitely.
start,
So
you don't. So,
exactly,
and I look
exactly.
forward to your
So
book too. So
yeah, thank you. And I'll get there at some point. And
you will.
I think one kind of other area for me is, I talked today and talked previously about, struggling for so long and how looking back, I really didn't need to struggle for that long. So I think,
Okay.
the kind of takeaway, if you will, for me is, if you're a dad and you struggling at work or you don't feel happy, you don't feel fulfilled, successful, whatever resonates with you there, I can help you with that, whether it's the one-on-one coaching, the premium package, the free resources. So,
Right. Right.
check me out. I'd love to be able to help. Website's www.danquinlan.com. Kept it straightforward with my
Right.
name. And,
Okay.
as I say, special deal for Dreamcatcher coupon
Yeah. We'll make sure we put all that in the
on the
show
wheel
notes
of
too.
success as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So definitely
Yeah. We'll
just
be sure.
want to help. And I put up to 50 on that and a 2 week expiry as well, because I've learned through
Okay.
the past of if you leave things open forever, you can put things off too long. So
True.
want to
Very true.
encourage action there as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because
appreciate
it
being
is.
back.
Well, thanks for being my guest again. I look forward to maybe we just need to do this like every 7 months and see how. I mean, we're both
Definitely, yes.
on our missions here, and it's amazing how much can happen. Well, it's amazing how much can happen in one day, but 7 months
Yeah,
I can probably do. So you might be started. We
absolutely.
might
I'm
both
happy,
be
be
writing
happy
our
to.
books then, and
Yeah, that would
so
be an interesting one to talk about, wouldn't it?
that that would be very much on that too. So I thank you for joining, Dan, and I hope someday. in the near future, I meet you in person. So I just
Yeah, that would be awesome.
it wouldn't be that because so okay. How far are you from like Chicago? I know how far it is
So we're
here.
about 3 hours, three and a
Yeah.
half hours away. So
Okay.
yeah, not
So
far.
what's your, I mean, like Indianapolis, how far close are you to the Indianapolis then?
45-minute drive
Oh wow,
across
okay.
north, so really close to Indy. Yeah,
Okay, I
so
know
yeah, about
what
40
it takes
miles or
to.
so.
I used to have a friend that lived in Indianapolis, and so okay, cool.
Okay,
Um, I got to
cool.
make that up. That's got to be on my that come visit you and your family. So
Definitely up for that, without
that
a
sounds
doubt.
great. So, well, Dan, thank you, and it's great talking to you every time. So, and I look forward to the next
And
time,
you,
and we'll keep in touch, and we'll see what has progressed to the next when we do the next podcast together. So, but anyway, on
absolutely,
that, thank you. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll be talking soon. So,
definitely. Thanks
so
for having us, and
see you later.
bye.